Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining. Super interesting time to be alive. I'm going to jump into a very interesting area that all investors need to be aware of. That is understanding exactly what they're up against in terms of who they are up against when they want to acquire some Bitcoin. So there's a couple of things I'm going to touch on. And what has always fascinated me about Bitcoin is scarcity, scarcity, scarcity. But investors need to understand the supply squeeze that they are facing in combination with the demand crunch. Okay, so this video today is all about who has got the coins and what it takes to get into a certain category of wealth for some things that are important for the future: lifestyle, future expenses, retirement, etc. So let's jump right in. First of all, one of my first videos already had over 50,000 views, so I want to thank everybody for the support. But one thing I've also become aware of is all of the scammers out there. So everybody watch. I am very responsive to comments down below, but please watch for scammers. I will never share my email or phone number or ask you for any information or push anything on anybody, okay? So just be aware of that. So apologize. We try to fix it, but it's extremely difficult. I also want to talk a little bit about where we are today. And there's a very good feeling within the crypto Bitcoin community out there, despite the scammers that are there on occasion. But many believe Bitcoin, and I too myself believe this, that Bitcoin is a philanthropy. Chamath has just dedicated to contribute all of his Bitcoin to buying out the Hamptons in New York for people, children, farmers, etc. So everybody keep the good vibes going, and Bitcoin is about freedom. Now, I want to talk real quick about inflation and deflation. This is important because a huge amount of money was printed, as we all know. About 25% of all existing US dollars were actually minted in the year 2020. So just to put things in perspective, inflation, this little graphic here I like, it shows you what you can buy for $20 in 1928 versus today, and then what you could buy with Bitcoin in 2011 versus today. You can see it's gone completely topsy-turvy. But not only is Bitcoin deflationary, it's actually deflationary to the power of 2, because I'm going to talk a little bit about this later, but people are actually losing their coins on ledgers and stuff like that. So make sure you stay tuned for that piece at the end. So let's talk about wealth distribution. There's a couple of things that are very fascinating here. Number one, 96% of all Bitcoin addresses own only 3.5% of Bitcoin. And the corollary of that is 4% of addresses own 96%. So it's very important, big picture, to understand who you're up against. And, you know, there's a very interesting day in the market today. Bitcoin spiked in a big way. It also dumped $3,000 in the space of 5 minutes. My question is, who is selling? And it was also very interesting to see how that scooped up so quickly as well. Another way of looking at things is the top 1% of all addresses own 90% of all the Bitcoins. Just think about that. It's quite remarkable. Now, bear in mind, some people think an address is an individual, but individuals can actually have multiple addresses. So as we go forward, I'll remind you of that again. Another way I like to look at this is, where do you want to be and where can you estimate people are based on the range of Bitcoin that they own? So for example, I pull this real time from a site and I modify it with some formulas and values to be able to come up with a couple of things that I like: statistics of the average coin by tranche of people with Bitcoin balances, for example, own between 1 and 10 Bitcoins, and what the average value is today. So this is updated assuming a Bitcoin price today of $32,000, which is what it was at the time of recording. And if you imagine people within the range of 10 to 100 Bitcoin, their average holding is about 1.029 million today. If you imagine somebody has 1 to 10 Bitcoins, the average Bitcoin holding is about 2.6 Bitcoins, and that's worth $85,000. So it's very interesting to see exactly where you want to play. If you've seen some of my other videos, it's very important to try being at least the 0.1 to 1 Bitcoin holders, and ultimately everybody's end game should be a Wholecoiner. And I'll talk more about that as well later in this video and why it's so important. Where does the competition come from? Not saying competition, but it's important to know is well, who you're up against. So you'll see here the majority come from North America, India, and Asia, excluding South Korea and Japan. They are big markets themselves. The Japanese are very quick to adopt Bitcoin, and so are the South Koreans. Also parts of Latin America And Africa has been completely booming because of hyperinflation in places like Venezuela, Argentina, Zimbabwe, etc. North America is about 27% of the actual market as well. And there are pockets of Europe that are adopting very fast, in particular Switzerland. So let's jump in and talk about who actually owns the Bitcoin today. And this is important to understand because these people aren't letting go. So the top individuals, what I did was I made, you'll see here, guesstimate. I took estimates of who the big players are. When I didn't have the exact number, I found out how much they invested in Bitcoin. Say, for example, in the year 2013, if somebody put away $350,000 or $4 million, I would take the average price for that year and calculate how many coins they have from the investment that they have, assuming they didn't actually sell any. So you'll see here a lot of players that you'll all recognize. Satoshi, obviously, some people say he may no longer be alive. His stash has never moved. That's 1.04 million coins. You've got Chamath, probably the richest man on earth very soon if Bitcoin goes this way. In fact, another interesting stat today, Bitcoin became the biggest bank on earth because of the value. So it's now bigger than JP Morgan. Anyway, as a side note, biggest bank, and Chamath might be the richest man on earth. He might soon take over Jeff Bezos. You got Mike Novogratz. He has 500,000 Bitcoins. You got the Winklevoss twins of Facebook fame, 200,000. Roger Ver, 100,000. He actually gave up his US residency and moved to Japan. It's probably one of the reasons why Japan has adopted Bitcoin so much. And you got a whole bunch of other players as well. If you see my other videos, you hear me talk about people like Tim Draper, who made a very good forecast in my last video, and Max Kaiser, Jack Dorsey, Raoul Pal. I could be wrong in the Raoul Pal estimate and some of the others, but I know it's at least 10,000 or 2,500 Bitcoins. It could be more, it could be less, but it's a pretty accurate guesstimate. On average, it should shake out perfectly. So let's look at the second category. It's very important that the top individuals, this list here alone, owns 3.26 million coins, which is 22% of the actual coins available. So top corporations. Treasuries are becoming very popular. You'll see the big blue piece there in the pie chart, MicroStrategy. You've probably seen some of my videos about MicroStrategy and how bullish I am on that company as a way to play call options and sell puts to piggyback on the success of Bitcoin. The other thing that'll be very exciting for Monday morning, and it was my Sunday musings a week ago, I said it's infuriating the way we have to wait so long for stock markets to open when there's huge movements in the underlying assets of these companies. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see exactly where MicroStrategy is. I was pushing it hard at $2.99, and it should blow through $400 easily on Monday. So, but other companies that actually hold Bitcoin, you got MicroStrategy, Tezos, Citibank, Fidelity, etc. Mass Mutual jumped into the game again. That was staggering. So the most conservative of all industries, the most risk averse of all industries, are now holding treasury in Bitcoin, which just means everybody else has to pile in real fast. And this is the reason for this video. Again, huge demand with the combination of a supply crunch. Before I move on, top corporations today that I know of, 300,000 coins, 2% of the float. That is increasing, and I know enterprises are buying up Bitcoin on the quiet. I'm pretty sure Microsoft or Google or even Tesla, maybe Facebook, they're all grabbing some right now. So let's talk about the top funds. You've got Grayscale. They have over 600,000 Bitcoin. They're by far the biggest. You got other groups there. Guggenheim openly disclosed that they were acquiring at 10,000 secretly, and then they disclosed it 3 months later that they were doing that. And some others, but the top funds own 1.07 million coins, 7.4% of the total. Then we'll look at the top exchanges. The top exchanges, Huobi, Binance, etc., Kraken. A lot of these players, some of them are facing some legal challenges right now, but they hold about 1.57 million coins. Again, 10.86% of the float. Then you have the top governments. Now, there are governments that are actually accumulating Bitcoin right now, like Iran, Venezuela, and others, and they may make it their own sovereign currency at some stage. But this is just a short list of the big holdings that I am aware of. The Chinese government have confiscated 194,000 called 195,000 Bitcoins. The FBI also confiscated some as well, and North Korea have some. So that's interesting that Kim Jong-un is actually holding Bitcoin. The other thing that's really, really, really important, and it infuriates me every time I hear on TV people talk about 21 million coins, 21 million coins, 21 million coins. It is ridiculous, and it makes me mad. These are three things that I want you all to remember. One, since 2010, about 4% of the available supply is lost each year. All right? And I'll explain why in a second. Number two, I reckon the available supply of Bitcoin is about 13.9 million coins, well below the 18.5 million mined to date. Forget the 21 million. And thirdly, ledgers. There's so many companies and even so many YouTubers pumping ledgers. So my theory on this, just a personal note and warning to everybody, I want to give objective, impartial, data-driven advice, but I'll never pump something I don't believe in. That includes some altcoins that are garbage. I get so many requests for, what do you think of Cardano and XRP and all these different types of things? The only two things I actually am interested in being in is Bitcoin and Ethereum. And the ratio is typically 85% Bitcoin, 15% Ethereum. But things like ledgers, things like moving stuff into cold storage, the reason it's being pumped so hard, my theory, is because people want people to lose coins, or they want to give them ledgers that they can be hacked after the fact so people can steal your coins. I still think the safest place to manage this is within some type of fiduciary, within a Coinbase or a Kraken or a Gemini or even PayPal, Square, Robinhood, any of these places. They're all much safer places to keep your coins. You know, as somebody once said, you never go broke paying taxes. Don't try and hide too much for the government, because if anything ever happens to your ledger, if it gets destroyed in a fire or burnt or whatever, it could be gone forever. So just be careful on that. Just my 2 cents. So let's jump into the conclusions right now. So let's take a second to jump into one thing that I think is important, and is the new vernacular of what I call dollars and cents. Of course, I know how to spell cents, but I thought this was funny. As Bitcoin gets so expensive, one coin being 32,000 as we speak, it's important to know the new dollars and cents as we go forward. So, for example, I put together this little illustration here for people to be able to relate to exactly what a sat is. So let's start at the sats first and then move our way back as a function of places of decimals. So for all you math people out there, you'll enjoy this. And it might even be new. I didn't even know there were MilliBitcoins. I knew about bits and sats, but never MilliBitcoins. Okay, so a sat is 100 millionth of a Bitcoin. A bit is a millionth of a Bitcoin. A MilliBitcoin is 1,000th of a Bitcoin. And one Bitcoin, of course, is one Bitcoin. Now, what's important is I recorded a piece on what I call Bitcoin insurance. It's very, very important for everybody. Don't get brokenhearted if you can't get one whole Bitcoin, but at least stack your sats, as they say. Like, accumulate as much as you can. Put in $25 a week, buy it through PayPal, and just accumulate, because this stuff is going to go big. If you saw my price predictions, look at price predictions part 2. The forecast in the future is very, very bright. And if you look at the movement we've had just since the beginning of this year, it is quite profound. So be familiar with sats, bits, and MilliBitcoins. All right, let's divulge for a second. So top 1% in the US owns nearly everything, but not Bitcoin. So there's a chance for people to make a difference here. And that's what I've been urging to people to do since the beginning of this channel. The other thing is, I wrote this piece and it was picked up on Reddit. It was very nice to see my little graphic about 6 weeks ago, where I was banging the table and said, stop talking about 21 million Bitcoin. It always makes me crazy, because 18.5 million have been mined, but I was talking about the float here of really only 7.6 million being available. And after this analysis, this video, it's even less. So let me talk about one thing here. It's very important. Less than 14 million Bitcoins will ever circulate. Think about that for a second. Less than 14 million. So this is another interesting way of looking at the actual supply, with some very staggering statistics that should at least take everybody back, because when I ran these numbers, I was like, oh, I had to double check my math. So let's jump in and calculate the actual Bitcoin per person and per millionaire. So if you imagine the world has 7.8 billion people and we have 14 million Bitcoins. That means it's approximately 1.86 coins for every 1,000 people. Now, if you look at the number of millionaires on Earth, there's 50 million millionaires on planet Earth. And again, 14 million Bitcoins. That means less than 0.3 coins per millionaire exist. So a lot of millionaires are going to be very disappointed when they find out there are no more coins left. But it gets worse. So per my recent analysis that I just walked you all through, I can account for 10.5 million coins, of which 1.5 million are on exchanges. Okay? So if we rip all that out, we actually come back to the fact that there are only 4.6 million coins left for the general population. That means 0.58 coins per 1,000 people, or 0.09 coins per millionaire. Think about that. Again, scarcity, scarcity, scarcity. I can't stress this enough. So, summary part 1. This is very important to note, okay? Another way of looking at the numbers, a tidy summary: 18.5 million coins mined, 4.6 million coins lost, 8.9 million coins tied up with high net worth individuals, corporate treasuries, funds, and governments. The rest of the world would be left to fight over the remaining 4.6 million coins, which isn't very much. Another way to think about it is regarding Wholecoiners. If everybody could achieve one whole coin, that would be great. And that's what I would love this audience to be able to do. But there are less than 638,000 people ever on Earth that will own more than one whole coin. Probably a lot less. So those 638,000 people will be sharing 4.6 million coins of the total supply. Again, extremely limited supply. So think about all those numbers, all those ways of looking at things, all of the ways of understanding exactly where you would be in a range, what it takes to be a whole coiner, and the competition you're up against from all the different parts of the world. Okay? Thank you so much, everybody. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell. New channel, new information. I come out with everything every day or so that will be unique, and it'll be interesting for data-driven people out there that are interested in investing and changing their lives and becoming free. So thanks again. Hope 2021 is going well.